Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Channel Surfing. We're down here at a dock. Gorgeous day outside. I want to get out of the covered soot, makes me kind of feel like I'm in a garage. And we're going to go over how I installed Starlink on our R27 outboard. So with that, let's get started.
Hear the voice within calling.
Alright, so to take Starlink out, take my suitcase. And here's my Starlink dish and my pull mount adapter. Like that. And I plug it in, and it automatically gets power through the network jack. And now I wait about 5 or 10 minutes, and then it'll be up and working. And that's all there is to set it up. Last year, I went and installed a 5G LTE router to the boat with a high gain mobility 42G antenna. Works fantastic at improving cell coverage, data coverage, and stuff on the phone, but on the boat. But Starlink, I need for going up to Southeast Alaska. And going up into Canada, like in the Broughton and stuff like that. When you get away from the cities and then there's just not a tower. I mean, LTE, you got to have a tower somewhere nearby. Starlink, obviously, you don't. So the issues with Starlink is, first off, is two of them. First off, the Starlink dish. I've got the RV dish, which is now called Starlink Roam. They just renamed it a couple months ago. But it's not an IP56 or IP67 or 68 rating. It's not waterproof. I don't even know if it's really even water resistant. It's meant to sit out on a stand and get rained on. But on a boat, it's high pressure salt spray that hits everything, and it's just corrosive and just eats stuff. The Starlink antenna is not waterproof at all either. So I didn't want to permanently mount it because of that. I wanted to bring it out, use it when I'm done, put it away. And the second thing is power requirements for Starlink. So the power requirements are actually pretty intense. So we have a 27-foot boat. Power is obviously the premium. I upgraded to lithium on the boat to get more power to help us at anchorage and stuff like that. But still, it's a 27-foot boat, right? I just don't have a lot of space, and therefore I've got a smaller battery bank as a result of that. Starlink comes when you buy it with requiring 120 volt AC power. So it's got a little router it comes with. You plug it into the wall. I'm on a boat, that means I got to run the inverter. Just to turn my inverter on will take 10 watts. So there's an amp coming right out of the batteries. And then of course it's converting AC back to DC because Starlink is powered off of DC. So anyhow, they don't make a 12 volt native adapter for Starlink. I really wish they did. Maybe one day they'll put one out, but currently they don't. There's tons of do-it-yourselfer information out there on how to convert Starlink to use 12 volt DC, and that's what I did. So in order for me to use Starlink, so with the 12 volt power, it cuts the power usage of Starlink by about 40%, right, as opposed to doing AC power. So 40% savings for me on power is huge. You know, the 5G router that I run, I really like it because it pulls between 6 and 9 watts. So I leave it on 24/7. I get boat monitoring. I've got my security cameras wired up to it. I get access on my phone, motion sensors and stuff, which is nice. I also get electronic monitoring of the health of my batteries, which I get on my phone with all the Victron stuff because it reports to Victron remote monitoring in the cloud. Starlink, I can't leave on 24/7 because the power requirements on Starlink, LTE is 6 to 9 watts. Starlink is 35 to 55 watts. When you convert it to 12 volt DC power, right, to get that 40% savings to it. So it's still an enormous amount of power if you were to leave it on 24/7. Even working, you know, I figure if I work, 6-7 hours a day on Starlink, I'm still probably going to burn through 35 or 40 amp hours on my battery bank. You know, so it's pretty significant. So use it when I need it, and when I don't, put it away. The 5G router is by far more economical, both in cost and in power usage and stuff to leverage it. And most of our boating is intercoastal cruising. Some I'm nearby a city. The high gain antenna helps me helps me stay in an anchorage and get and still get access to the, you know, have good reception from those cell towers. You know, our phones lack the antenna necessary to talk back to the tower when you get further away, right? So Starlink overcomes that because you're talking to the satellites, but Starlink also needs clear view of the sky. That's why we're out here in the sun today to talk about Starlink, because in my slip, it's a covered slip, I can't get Starlink to connect in my covered slip, right? Obviously because of metal roof on top. So what I decided to do was, I've got Starlink mounted up here in a rod holder, right here. So it's just a pole mount. There's the button right here. So this comes off, and this is just a regular dish. This is all I did. Nothing fancy. It's all temporary. Drop Starlink into the rod holder, and then for connecting it, I came down here and I put in an Ethernet jack right down here for it. And all the Ethernet connections, they're all IP68, which means they're waterproof. The way this thing works, I have to loosen this back nut. Back here, loosen the back nut, and then I can twist the top. And I pull in there, you can see it's an Ethernet jack. So being power over Ethernet, which is to do it yourself, convert to 12 volt, means all I have to do is plug in the jack. I don't do anything else. I take the antenna out of the case, I put it in the rod holder, I plug it in, and then I come over here and I tighten down the waterproofness of it in case it's raining in the cockpit or whatever. And I wait a couple of minutes and I'm up online on Starlink, right? So where does that cable go on the other side? It runs through here, goes down, comes over here. And if we look in Port Lazaret, this is my Starlink power over Ethernet injector. So inside here, there's a 12 volt to 48 volt DC converter that takes the 12 volt from the boat, converts it to 48 volts, which is what this injector needs. And then these are custom crimped to Starlink's color coding, which is non-standard. And that then feeds in, this side of it goes to the dish, this side goes to my router. And I put it in a waterproof box because there's no other way to make that waterproof, water resistant that way. The rest of the network cable goes from that PoE injector up here, under, over here, goes that way in the cave, it goes up the bulkhead, it goes over the center line, and then it runs straight to my PepLink router, which we'll show you in just a sec. So right up here is my PepWave LTE router. It's got 4 LTE antennas on the one side, it's got GPS, 2 Wi-Fi antennas, and the orange cable is Starlink. So I have got that program that if it sees Starlink, it'll prefer that first, but if Starlink's not there, then it'll use the LTE and just talk 5G using my T-Mobile or AT&T SIM cards. And it's actually worked out really well. The 5G, like I said, we use most of the time, and now I got Starlink for when we get up into Southeast Alaska and, you know, even more north of Vancouver Island in British Columbia, where where LTE is very scarce. So one of the other challenges with Starlink, this is why I look at Starlink versus 5G as right tool, right job. I don't think one is better than the other. I don't think one is worse than the other. Now, obviously, there's a cost to it. So, to give you an example, we're actually here at Everett, and I've got Starlink. Well, Everett is a large city, right? And Starlink is oversubscribed out here. So, that's my speed test. I'm getting 7 megabit down, 9.5 up. Not fantastic, but usable. I might be able to get a Zoom call on that. It certainly can get email and social media and stuff like that with it, but certainly not the 100 megabit plus. If I switch this over to LTE, these numbers will be much higher. They'll be double digits easily. Use leveraging 5G and stuff in the neighborhood. When I get away from when I get away from a city, then these numbers will improve immensely on Starlink. Right. This is why I said it's. I wish you could have one solution that works all the time. And unfortunately, that's just not the case, with Starlink specifically. It's meant for rural areas and they get away from the metropolitan areas, because everybody on land who's buying Starlink then taxes their internet connection. And then the Starlink roam, which is what I have, is portable, so it's meant to go all over. And because of that, they'll deprioritize my network traffic when I'm around a city, that's got a large amount of Starlink stuff deployed. Other thing too to talk about is in motion. The RV, the Starlink roam is actually not, it's against their terms and conditions to use it while you're moving. They did a firmware upgrade not too long ago that actually made it where if you go over 10 miles an hour, it'll see that and it'll stop working. It'll say, sorry, you're going too fast, can't, and it'll stop. So for us, I don't need Starlink while I'm in motion. The only time I would use Starlink is if I was working from the boat, or I had no coverage at all and I wanted to get weather. So to do that, I'd bring the dish out, and it only take me a couple minutes to bring it out, drop in the rod holder, plug it in, wait a few minutes, then boom, it's up and running. And I'm only going to do that at an anchorage, at a dock, right? Somewhere I want to be in calm conditions. I'm not going to be going through 4-foot seas with a Starlink dish on top of my boat, right? So if I want internet while I'm underway, I get that with the 5G setup that I have with the antenna and the mobility. And obviously, if I'm not around LTE, then I don't have that, and I won't have internet while I'm underway. And I'm good with that, actually. It's I want to make sure the life of the antenna works. I don't want it hanging out on the boat, not waterproof and such. They do make a high performance dish that is waterproof and is set for marine. The Starlink roam dish that I bought, which was the old RV dish, was $700. The high performance dish is $2,500. I like Starlink. I don't like it that much. And it's and then the service is obviously more expensive. Also, on the high performance dish, because it's waterproof, it's also about 1/3 bigger than the RV one. So it's a much larger dish, and the power requirements are more for it also. Right, so here again, I'm looking to conserve power, and just the benefits of the high performance dish, I wouldn't realize any of it. But that high performance dish, you can pay and get in motion with it. Think of like cruise ships and stuff like that want to do that. I don't need Starlink at all while I'm moving. I would never use it while I'm moving. So with that, it took me, I'd say, the biggest part of the project on installing Starlink, building the PoE injector. Took a fair amount of time getting all the wiring right. I've got a diagram right here. Check this out. That shows exactly how I did it with all the color coding and stuff. I did all the custom color coding inside the PoE box, so that outside it's just normal network cables, it's a TF568B standard, which is normal color coding for network cables. So that way I kept all the proprietary stuff inside the box, and outside I can use whatever cables I want and be standard with it. And then the running the cable was really the biggest challenge. It's the longest cable run on my boat. I have a 35-foot cable and it barely reached. I actually should have probably got a 50-foot and then cut it back. But I made it fit. It works good. Because I'm running Starlink off of 12 volt DC, the Starlink router that comes with it, I don't need that. I don't use that at all. The Peplink does that. Now, one of the caveats is it puts, so all the brains for Starlink are actually in the dish, not necessarily in the router. The dish tells the router what to do, so you don't need the Starlink router at all to have it to power it this way, which is kind of cool. But when I first plugged it into the Peplink, then the Starlink app didn't work. It couldn't connect to it, right? So there's a static route you have to add. It's all part of the do-it-yourself instructions. In order for me to be able to get the Starlink app to work on the phone, you just tell, there's a route you put into the Peplink router to say, hey, to get to Starlink management, it's this way, right? And it points to it. Then the app works just as normal. And it's important that the app work, because when I go to put Starlink away, I have to put it in the stow position for the motors to get it so it'll fit back in the case. So I log into the app. So I just did another speed test while I was here, and I'm getting 10.5 megabit down, and I'm getting almost 10 megabit upload on Starlink. So not bad. It's 10 megabit in each direction is actually useful. I could watch YouTube videos and stuff off of that. I could even do a Zoom call or two with that. I wouldn't have the whole family on it at that time, but it would be functional, which is all I'm after on the boat. But here and again, it's only slower on speed because I should be using 5G because I'm in Everett. If I was far away from here, then Starlink would outperform the 5G stuff. Now I'm going to log into Starlink app. I'm going to tell it to stow the antenna to put it away. Alright, so I'll go ahead and hit stow. I'm going to put it away. So you're sure? It says yep. And then it folds the antenna down, shuts itself off. So I'll unplug it. I slide this over to protect the little tab on the network cable. I bought this suitcase. This is Starlink's backpack carrying case for Starlink. So inside here, it actually has a spot to hold the Starlink router, the stand, and then this is the extra cable that I cut. So I was smart when I cut the cable. I didn't need 75 feet over here, so I gave myself a little bit extra spare. But if I ever wanted to use this, I can do an RJ45 coupler from this cable to that one and put the cable back, and then I can use the Starlink connectors, which are proprietary. Let's say my PoE injector failed, I can use this router on 120 volt AC to be a power over Ethernet injector for Starlink, and still leverage it off the Peplink and make it work that way. So it's kind of like a backup, but I needed a good way to store the Starlink dish on the boat so it's protected, and that's what this does. So I put it away, do that, and then take this off on the side. Cable in there, the dish fits right in here. This goes right on top of it. And she's put away. But that's it. Easy to put away, easy to take out and set up, easy to use. Looking forward to being able to leverage Starlink. We're hoping our Southeast Alaska trip to be in Glacier Bay and be able to stream live and stuff from there. So you guys can all see Glacier Bay while we're up there using Starlink. So with that, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you really enjoyed this video, it'd really help us out a lot if you click that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks. And if you want to check out the 5G router, what I did to do that install, please go ahead and click right here and watch that one. Thank you.
If you enjoyed watching this video, click the screen to watch another.